Hello, my Astro family. This is Lada from astrolada.com. Today we're doing Libra with a Libra with the beautiful Ksenia. Her moon is in Libra, yes?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is my
Yeah.
sign, one of my signs. Yeah.
So Libra 2021, and we're going to speak a little bit before that about the year generally for everyone. And that's part of the Astrolada 2021 Astrology Marathon. Thank you for joining us, Ksenia. You've been gone for a little bit. We missed you.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be back, Lada. I've been having a bit of a break. I did burn myself out in the start of the year, so it's nice to be back on board again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And Ksenia is offering 2021 readings for recording, but only to 20 people, 20, 30 at most. The first one, if you can, maybe within the next 24 hours of this video release, should get booked up. But if you're interested, check out. And yeah, we only have 30 people. We don't want to burn her out again.
That's right. I'm looking after myself now.
So
yeah.
shoot.
Yeah. So we're looking at Libra this year, and there's I've got my little astro wheel behind me set up for Libra rising, but you can also consider this for your sun or your moon placement as well. It's all applicable. I mean, I have Libra moon, so this is applicable to me from my moon placement.
And by the way, Ksenia makes those wheels, so if you're interested, contact her from the contact information.
Yes, yeah, I make a smaller version. So yeah, send me a message through my readers page, and I'm happy to chat to you about those that I sell. They're really helpful actually for learning astrology, and they're simple and concise. I'm very proud of them.
I'm very proud of them too. I use yours as well for my prediction.
I know. Thank you for
We all
using
are. I see astrologists from around the world using them now.
It's great. Really good for teaching actually too. And kids love them, especially the magnets.
Mine stand on top of them and rotate. So one is teaching and the other one is spinning him. So.
Like a little exercise machine or something. Perfect.
Okay.
And it can be used for everything. That is wonderful. Where were we? Oh yes. So with Libra, Libra rising, sun or moon. Well, we're looking at this general configuration, but of course the planets are obviously going to move a fair bit throughout the year. Hey, I'm just going to apologize because I can hear the bin people collecting the bin outside my office window. So if you can hear that, I do apologize. It's very noisy. But back to Libra. Or let's talk about the things that are going to unfold for everybody this year. One of the things is that throughout March and most of April, there are going to be no retrograde planets at all. So this is going to be a great time, great couple of months for lots of forward momentum, progress, and being able to pursue goals without sort of any blockages or inhibitions, which is really exciting. And for Librans particularly, during this no retrograde period, that at that time the sun will be in Aries, and so will Mercury and Venus, the three who usually travel fairly close to one another around the horoscope. So that's Libra's seventh house. Here's Libra, and the seventh house from Libra is Aries. So it's in partnerships that Libran people during this time will be able to really get a lot of momentum. You know, if you're looking at doing some entrepreneurial collaboration, it would be really good to do it in March and April as a Libran person, because there'll be a lot of momentum and a lot of fire in what you start, a lot of creativity and energy in what you start, especially with Aries being where the sun is. The sun's exalted in the sign of Aries. So entrepreneurial endeavors, brilliant for any collaborative projects with other people during that time. But if you're in a partnership, like if you're in a marriage or some sort of a committed relationship or a business partnership even, and it needs a bit of a fire up, it needs a bit of an injection of rocket fuel, well, that is a great time to sort of work on that, to sort of put some life and energy and vitality back into your relationships as well. You'll be really supported in doing that.
So that's March and April, yes?
Yes, throughout March and April when we have no retrograding planets, and obviously during Aries season when the sun is in Aries in the seventh house at that time as well. So really a good a good couple of months there to look forward to. But then we're going to have 5 retrograde planets by the time we hit August the 20th through to the 6th of October. So it's going to be a big shift. We've got all the big momentum and forward motion early in the year, but by the sort of spring in Australia and autumn in other parts of the world, we might feel a bit slower, a bit more stuck in some way, with everything retrograding. Not everything, but five planets retrograding is at least half of the planets retrograding all at once. So things slow down, things feel a bit more like molasses, a bit slower, a bit more stuck. So we want to be aware of that, and when we see it happening, we'll just go, it's the planets, and roll with the punches. Now, for Libran people, the sun obviously is going to be in your sign during the 15th of September to the 31st of October. And, you'll usually feel very energized and very on fire during this period. But remember, this is when the planets are retrograding. So with 5 planets retrograde, that usual energy we get during our birth month can be a bit subdued, a bit weighted down. So you'll still be fired up, but remember, all the planets are retrograding, so there won't be quite as much momentum as there will be in March, April with that going on. Sorry, I said 15th of September, didn't I, to the 31st of October? That's not correct, is it? It's sort of the 21st of September through to roughly the 21st, 22nd of October. So my apologies to Libra and sun signs there who know better. And then Venus will be in your sign as well around that time too. So obviously, rulership, which is your sign, Libra, and that's sort of going to be late August until around early September that she's going to be in your sign. So should be quite good for anything to do with love and money and luxuries and everything. But again, all those planets are retrograding at that time, so it mightn't be as beneficial as it would at other times when you've got a lot more planets going forward. So you'll still see some good times and make some good female friends and have some nice beauty treatments and what have you can happen during that time. But yes, not as full of momentum as at other times when planets are all direct. So they're the big kind of themes for the year for generally speaking for Librans. But Jupiter I'm really excited about this actually, especially as a Libran moon. Jupiter is going to be in your 5th house, Libran people, down here, 5 houses in whole sign astrology from your ascendant. And so this is great. So he is going to be there. Jupiter is in your 5th house, one of the most auspicious houses in the horoscope, till the 14th of May. And then he'll do a little bit of a song and dance in Pisces. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then turn retrograde and be back into the 5th house on the 29th of July. And he'll stay there until the end of the year, till the 30th of December. So we're going to have a big taste throughout 2021 of Jupiter in the 5th house. So this is like such an auspicious house for Jupiter to be transiting. So it'll support us heaps by lifting up our levels of joy, creating great relationships with our kids, perhaps bringing more love into our life as well from all different sources. We'll feel more loving, we'll be more generous with our love that we give to the world. Our creativity will just and our creative intelligence will just expand, which is wonderful if you're in a creative industry and you work in a creative field. And this Jupiter being in the 5th house will take the edge off a lot of the more difficult transits, which we'll talk about in a minute. I know Saturn's there and they tend to sort of even each other out a bit. Saturn kind of sucks a bit of the joy out of Jupiter, and Jupiter eases the effect of Saturn a little bit. But still, this is a very lucky house, and having Jupiter here is always going to be. I can
give an example. My sister-in-law is Virgo rising, and she had Saturn and Jupiter in the 5th house this year. So she went to what Libra is going to go through next year. So she was quite miserable in the summer. I'm single. I've been single for so many years. Like she had she felt like the joy out of life was sucked out of her. But within that same period, she met the love of her life. In October, now they're living together and they're going to be getting married within 2 months and a half. So
Oh,
Saturn,
that's
Jupiter in the fifth house, yes, first it can feel like, oh, it's slow, I'm not happy with my romantic life, I'm not having enough fun, you beat yourself down. But because it's a manifestation, when Saturn and
yeah,
Jupiter together in Vedic astrology, you studied
yeah,
that, is that
yeah.
they manifest the house they're transiting through. So they're going to manifest that romantic side, even if at moments you feel, no, it's not going to happen, but it can, and it does.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was we were talking before we started this video, Lara, about how the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, which is going to occur in your fifth house, Libra. I had a channeling session recently where I was informed that this would create anything that was established under this energy will last for the long term. So in the fifth house, a new love that comes under this energy, well, it will last the long term, and, you know, relationships with children and creative project and all those sorts of things. So it's a very exciting time,
I'm
actually.
getting goosebumps when you told me that. This is the truth. When I get goosebumps, that's my barometer for truth.
I know. It's Uranus intuition saying, yeah, you're on the money, isn't it, when you get goosebumps? I love it. But in the Vedic system, it's really, really interesting because the aspects that Jupiter throws in the Vedic system are really, really auspicious when he's in the fifth house. Super auspicious, because the fifth house is a lucky house, but he's also aspecting the ninth house, which is the luckiest house in the horoscope. He's aspecting the first house, which is us as Librans, and in this case, and our journey in the body, and also the 11th house, the house of rewards and gains. So all the auspicious houses, the blessed houses in the horoscope, are getting an aspect from Jupiter, which I'm just so excited about as a Libran person. I think, yes, bring it on. This is fantastic. But if you are somebody and you are looking for, like, let's say you've been married or had a relationship before, but it's fallen apart, a committed relationship. Well, in Western astrology, the ninth house is your second life partner, the 11th house is your third life partner, and the first house is your fourth life partner. And when you have a Jupiter aspect to one of these houses, it's one of the things we look for that triggers relationship coming in. You need at least 3 relationship certain triggers to sort of generate enough energy for a relationship to come into your life. But with this, if you're looking for your third, your fourth and your fifth, or your fifth, not all at once, fifth life committed life partner, then, and you're a Libran person, then this year looks really good for you to be able to manifest something like that. And with Saturn there too, it makes it last. It's a position that will make love last for the long term. So I think it's wonderful for Libran people who are looking for love, as many Libran people like to do, because it's all about relationships for them, isn't it? So I find that really exciting. But from the 14th of May to the 29th of July, Jupiter is going to be in his own rulership in Pisces, the 6th house over here. I'll just stick him on. So he's going to be sitting in the 6th house from your ascendant. And that brings positivity and optimism to 6th house things. And in this case, Saturn's not going to be with Jupiter. So it's all Jupiter expansion and growth in the 6th house realm. So that would be things like your health routines, your state of health, your vitality, your body. Do be careful about putting on weight, because whenever Jupiter's in the 1st house or the 6th, you tend to expand the body a bit. So I'll have to curtail the amount of chocolate I've been eating, I think, when that happens. It's winter in Australia too at this time as well. So in Australia, you know, when it's cold and we're eating all those big hearty meals and what have you to keep warm. So be careful if you're in Australia and you've got this going on. Your service life, like this is the house of service, how we serve and burn our karma through our service. It's the house of how we work and with how we solve problems. And so these areas of life can be very benefited by Jupiter transiting through here. We have the ability to resolve problems quite easily when Jupiter transits through the 6th house, especially in his own rulership. So if you've got problems, like you're going through a court case or something like that, or dealing with a divorce or something, you'll be able to sort those sorts of things out quite easily and with a great deal of sort of, I was going to say benevolence, that's probably not the right word, but just an ease of sorting out issues with a spouse that you're divorcing or something. And, you know, those sorts of things will be made a lot easier. And really, this is a taste, this period, 14th of May to 29th of July, it's a period when we're going to get a taste of what we'll experience in 2022, what Jupiter in Pisces in 2022 will bring us. So if you're interested, pay attention to what Jupiter does at that time and what changes in your life at that time. And yeah, you'll get a bit of a taste of what we can expect in the following year. So that's Jupiter in Pisces, but then, as I said, he'll go back into the 5th house for a bit longer at the end of the year. So the next one, and this is probably the big thing that all the astrologers are talking about for 2021, the thing that's going to affect us most on the collective level, and that is the Saturn-Uranus square between the 8th house and the 5th house. I'll probably have a chat about that in a minute, I think. Yeah, there's something else I want to talk about first. But it was only this morning, I was sort of half awake, half asleep, and it occurred to me, Ksenia, this is exactly what you've got in your chart, and I can speak very well about Saturn in the 5th and Uranus in the 8th because that's what I've got natally. So
Wow.
it's quite ironic. Anyhow, if you want to note down the dates, like these two will be tangoing within proximity of each other all year, but there are 3 dates when they're going to make exact connections. And for people who like to know exact dates, I'll tell you what they are. The first one's happening on the 17th of February, and that's when they're both at 7 degrees and 12 minutes of Aquarius and Taurus. Mercury will be in retrograde at that particular time as well. So for anyone who wants to know that. The next date when they connect will be on the 15th of June, so a few months later, and they're connecting at 13 degrees and 7 minutes. And if you've got planets around these points in either Aquarius or Taurus, then you might feel it more strongly than other people. But Saturn will be retrograding when they connect for the second time on this date. And then the final connection is actually the 24th of December, the day before Christmas, at 11 degrees and 6 minutes. And Uranus will be retrograde at that time. So just for people who like to know the dates and the degrees and that sort of thing, I thought I'd mention that. But the other piece of the puzzle for 2021 that we're looking at, before I talk more extensively about this square, the other piece of the puzzle are the eclipses that are happening. Fortunately, we're only having 4 eclipses next year and not 6 like this year. God, this year was out of the box. but it's happening on the same axis as the eclipses that we've had this year, which is the south node in the 3rd house and the north node in the 9th house. So it's on the 3rd house, 9th house axis, which to me is really, really interesting. It speaks to me just generally, these eclipse cycles in Sagittarius, Gemini for Libran people have been all about mastering something, becoming an expert in something, having a great deal of knowledge about something, and becoming even a teacher about something. And that's what North Node in the 9th house is all about. But funnily enough, because with Libran charts, everything is flipped to the opposite tone, it's having a great deal of mastery and knowledge and being able to teach, but doing so in a way where the knowledge is shared collectively. And it's not about hierarchical teaching or hierarchical sharing where the teacher's up here and the students are down there. It's about all being at an equal plane. So it's an interesting combination of the two on this axis. So leaving sort of 3rd house energies behind and moving more into this sort of teaching, but on a shared level, Gemini 9th house, which is, it's always interesting doing Libran charts because they've got such a flipped, a reversed way of looking at things from what we usually see. If you know what I mean. Gemini correlates to the 3rd house opposite it, and Sagittarius correlates to the 9th house opposite it. So that's what I mean by things are flipped. But anyway, about these eclipses, so there's 4. There's a set of 2 that are occurring in May, June. So May the 26th at 5 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini, we're going to be having a full moon lunar eclipse. And so that's happening at 5 degrees, and the nodes will be at 10 degrees. So if you've got planets around 5 degrees or 10 degrees of Gemini Sagittarius, then you'll feel the impact of this eclipse fairly strongly. So that's the first one, and that's the full moon eclipse. And then we're having on June the 10th, a new moon eclipse. And this one is occurring at 19 degrees. So again, if you've got planets at 19 degrees of Gemini and around 10 degrees of Gemini Sagittarius, then you'll also feel this eclipse as well. The first one on the May 26th is square to Jupiter in Pisces at this stage, so that will be having an effect as well. And the second one will be conjunct a retrograde Mercury. Interestingly, eclipses come in sets and series that run for roughly 1,200 years. They do 1,200-year cycles of eclipses that occur every 18 years. So think it back to where you were at 18 years from May 2021. What was going on in your life then? What was important? What changes occurred? Because that's a good indication of the kind of thing that you might see playing out again. And I probably should talk maybe just briefly about the eclipse cycle of this particular set. It has a very psychic theme, this set of eclipses. Lots of prophecy, lots of visions. Creativity and imagination will probably be quite enhanced at this time. So if you want to note this down on your calendar, if you have any visions or dreams at this time that seem really strong, pay attention to them, act on them. They will be indicators of how to deal with your life that can really lead to very positive manifestation under this influence of this eclipse. So yeah, very, very light-filled set of eclipses, this one. The second set is going to occur later on in the year, again on this axis as well. November the 19th, there's a full moon eclipse. But this one's interesting, and Lada, you might be able to sort of give me, if you know about this, some information, because I'm not quite au fait with what it means to have an eclipse in 2 different signs. I don't know if you know about this, if there's anything significant about this, but the eclipse is occurring at 26 degrees of Taurus up here. I'll write it on so people can see it. So the eclipse is at 26 degrees of Taurus, but the nodes are in a different sign here in Gemini Sagittarius at about 1 degree. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if have you ever come across any information about when they're in 2 different?
I've looked at them, and I still see that they act around the degree of the eclipse, and they'll manifest in basically the last, I usually give it an orb 3 degrees before and after. So basically the last 6-7 degrees of Taurus, they would feel it. So whatever you have around there is. So
it's mostly the axis of Taurus Scorpio then.
Yeah, that's kind of what triggers. At least that's what I think. So.
Yeah. Oh, that it makes sense. So for Libran people, that means that they're going to get activation then in their 8th house, 2nd house, which is about giving and receiving. Other people's money versus our own resources, other people's resources versus our own money. So there could be some activation around that time. And I'll explain about this set of eclipses in a minute, because that will sort of color how you might be experiencing money and dealing with money and giving and receiving at this time. But what is interesting is that 26 degrees of Taurus is conjunct with the fixed star Algol, at the head of Medusa. So in that sense, it's maybe just be very careful with your money under this eclipse. I don't like the Medusa myth, quite honestly, Lada. I think it's very unfair to women, and I think we need to re-myth the story of Medusa. She was very hard done by, but the energy that comes through Algol in the head of Medusa and that constellation is not
it's a
not
bit
that
distracting.
flash.
So be careful not to fight over resources, how much you give, how much you receive emotionally, psychologically. But Hermes said in an ancient text that Algol, even though malefic, can bring money because it's of the nature of Saturn and Jupiter, which is a wealth combination. And I've seen it
Yeah.
a lot of wealthy people that are a little bit difficult personalities and have some issues, with temper and stuff like that. That they'll have money, but they'll have, because Medusa is losing your head, so they can have inclinations to addictions, losing one's head, or just getting, in crazy situations. But still, I think it will be.
Yeah.
I think this eclipse can indicate some money, but also the other things.
Mm. With Algol, I read something about in ancient Babylonian, it because it's one of those stars that flickers from, I think, red to blue. It changes its color, and when it's red, it's not so. If you're born with it in its red phase, I don't know how you calculate that, but if you're born within its red phase, it tends towards a bit more of the negative side. But in its blue phase, it's actually really quite positive can be positive in your life. So. Sorry, I cannot tell you how to calculate that, but
Yeah, I think
there
it's
must be
only
a
if
way.
they watched it, or if you have to get some astronomical books and see, because it
Yeah,
flicks in and out with different colors. Yeah, so
yeah. And of course, back in Persia, they were always watching and looking at the sky to see what was going on. So anyway, so that's that eclipse on the 19th of November. And then we have one on the 4th of December. But that will be back here in Gemini, Sagittarius axis again. So we're going through kind of a changeover period, I guess, there, with eclipses moving from one set of signs to another. But this one will be a new moon eclipse, a solar eclipse, in other words, and it's occurring at 12 degrees of Sagittarius, and the nodes will again be at 1 degree here. This one will be sextiling Saturn. So again, when you've got a positive aspect from Saturn being made, it can solidify things for, again, the long term, or make things last, or give some long-term manifestation with that. But yeah, so that set of eclipses, that second set later in the year in 2021, that is actually very, very light filled. This is a what they call a Saros set of eclipses that is all about getting good news, receiving good news, falling in love comes with this one, and reaching a personal peak of joy. So for most people on the planet, or all of us, but especially if you've got planets around those degrees that I mentioned for this set of eclipses, there could be a lot of positivity that comes of this, a lot of benefit that comes of this set of eclipses. So yeah, lots of opportunity with the eclipses. Strong themes of, particularly with this eclipse here, strong themes of intimacy and sex, as well as personal power that comes with that particular eclipse. That's the eclipses in a nutshell. I mean, obviously, we'll talk deeper about those things at the time, but I just wanted to cover what's going on in the year ahead. But it's the Saturn Uranus square that I mentioned earlier that's really the biggie, that probably we'll see playing out on the collective and impacting the collective. It's about the unconventional, which is Uranus, having some tension with the old school, the conventional, the way we've always done it. And that will really create a seesaw effect, a bit of a push-pull effect. We can't rush the necessary change that we want to bring in on the collective level. We're all going to want to, put new things in place so we don't go through another 2020 again, but we'll be sort of held back from doing so in a rush. It will be sort of, let's make it right, let's make sure, let's be methodical, which is very Saturn. And that will cause probably a lot of frustration to those of us who just want to get on and get the job done and get back to normal again. So there's challenges there on the collective level, strong frustration. We want to break away from old paradigms, and we want to create the new, but we're being pulled back and restricted in doing so. And this for Libran people is happening in the 5th house, 8th house realm, with 5th house, 8th house things. So there might be a desire to change your how you're dealing with children in your life, but there's restrictions and blockages to doing so. Or you want to change your situation with love and sex, because in Vedic astrology, isn't it, where the fifth house has to do with sexuality is seen also from the fifth house, as well as the eighth. So
Western as well. Yeah, falling in
Western,
love, sexuality, romance. In Western as well,
yep.
the fifth house is of fun, sex for fun.
Yes.
House.
Rather than tantric, which is out here in the eighth.
Most people do sex from the fifth house rather than from the eighth is kind of darker or let's say more intense.
Yeah. So those things we might be feeling on a bit of a seesaw roller coaster ride with, between what's conventional and what's new, like experimenting with sex versus just this is the way we always do it, missionary position or whatever. So the desire for something new versus the staying in the old safe territory that we know and love or whatever, and that might cause some challenges for Libran people in some way. Creativity is another theme there, where there's some push-pull. Fame is seen from the fifth house as well. So maybe a desire for fame or the opportunity for fame, but then some restrictions come in and keep you from achieving that celebrity status, because you've got to do the work first and make sure that you actually have your skills organized to be able to be in that position of celebrity. That could be a scenario for Libran people. Anything occult studies, finances with your partner's finances particularly is what we're talking about here. All these things will be on this sort of seesawing, conservative, unconventional seesaw. We could also, I think, for Libran people, as well as seeing a lot of vacillation between optimism and pessimism around these things, we might see a lot of inconsistent behavior between the people represented in fifth house, eighth house realms as well. So that would be inconsistency with children's behavior, or inconsistency with our relationship with children. One day we're like this, and the next day we're the strict authoritarian person, and then we're encouraging our children to sort of be rebels and break free or whatever. We might see a lot of inconsistent behavior with lovers as well, and intimate partners. So don't be surprised if that plays out all year long. And strong prejudices can actually come out with this one as well, where we disregard what we've achieved so far in life for the sake of achieving something new, and we have these, like I said, these strong prejudices about, well, we don't do it that way anymore, and so that's throwing out the baby with the bathwater kind of thing. We probably need to be careful about that kind of behavior too. Lots of twists and turns with everything to do with eighth house, fifth house things for Librans this year. But the good thing is, though, if we practice the Saturn energies of gradual, persevering effort, then we can up level with these themes in our life. Success can come with these areas of life, but we're going to need to work for it, basically. It's not going to be something that comes easily in the year ahead.
Gemini's and Moon rising December 2020. Let's start with the big news.
Oh my God. Sorry. Some videos.
I thought I had two lighters with me for a minute.
Okay.
What were you saying?
Yeah, something, I pressed some button and some old video started, sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done with a square aspect. Like, it's a tense aspect. It's a square aspect has the nature of Saturn about it, where there's hard work that needs to be done. But if you persevere and you push through it, when that square aspect concludes, then you get the rewards if you've worked hard, which is very much how Saturn works. Which I'm relieved about, because he's about to leave Capricorn. We'll get the reward if we've worked hard in the Capricorn area of our life. For Libran people, it's fourth house matters. But the square aspect carries that tone of Saturn as well. So working hard on these fifth house things, children, lovers, creative projects, hobbies. If you want celebrity, you want to work towards that. eighth house things, sex and other people's money, dealing with inheritances and wills and so forth, they're all going to be influenced with this effect. So we need to work hard. We need to persevere to be able to manifest our talents and abilities this year. For Libran people particularly, there will be a lot of psychic and astrological and occult knowledge available to us, because whenever Uranus is transiting the 8th house, that area of our life, it just goes off like a rocket ship. You know, it's like the electricity switch, which Uranus rules, is turned on to full, and we just get intuitive downloads and can access occult knowledge easily. We become very intuitive, a bit psychic as well when Uranus is here. So that is happening for 7 years for Libran people, Uranus in the 8th house, where that occult knowledge and so forth is amplified. But this year, out of that 7-year transit of Uranus, this year it's going to only come with hard work and perseverance. It's not going to be just sort of land in your lap. We're going to have to work hard to grow our occult knowledge and seek it out, or get that psychic intuition that ordinarily might come a bit easier to us in this transit. Saturn's just going to make us work for it a bit more. But we'll get there if we persevere and we don't give up, and we want to grow our knowledge of astrology or whatever. It will happen, but it'll happen with some work. If you are dealing as a Libran person with some sort of will or a legacy, maybe an inheritance or some tax return or something like that, there might be very slow progress with that this year as well. It's not going to come about easily if you're trying to negotiate, a will or something like that. It'll happen very slowly, which could be a bit of a pest, but having the knowledge is to be forewarned is to be forearmed. You'll know what's going on if it's taking forever to get that sorted. There might be, like I said, some challenges with the sex life and intimacy. Not only that seesaw effect, but there might even be some blocks to having a good sex life this year. And it's not that things aren't working right. It could be that it could be that your partner has to go and work in LA for 6 weeks and you're in New York, and you're just separated, and so you can't do what you want to do. Or maybe you can over the phone or with the internet, who knows. But actually Uranus in the 7th house, the 8th house would fit, sex over the internet. But
but while the wife is what if they get used to that? Oh, you mean not like porn, you mean like with the partner? Okay.
yeah with your partner, virtual sex.
My husband is Libra rising, so I have to be careful what kind of kinks he develops that year.
Yeah, keep an eye on it. But maybe physical blocks to being with your partner might pop up now and again throughout 2021. So there can be also, we're talking a lot about sex, but as I said, both these houses are strong with sexuality, so we've got to talk about it. But conservativeness, it's kind of versing experimentation with sex, but also with hobbies, sticking to what with hobbies versus trying something new that you've never tried before, or pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits, and liberating yourself with some form of self-expression or creative intelligence. That's another thing. Money and luck as well. I mean, the 5th house is the house of luck and risky speculations. So there can be sort of an energy of conservatism versus experimentation with luck, and taking risky ventures. If it was me, I mean, I'm probably quite conservative anyway with money, but I'd be more inclined to, so if I was going to invest in the stock market, invest in something a bit more conservative this year rather than going something a bit extreme or a bit risky. That would be my approach with Saturn in the 5th house, if you are into investing and that sort of thing. But yeah, it can leave us feeling a bit sort of on a seesaw, all this stuff as we vacillate. But it is a really, it's a big year for endings and new beginnings for Libran people with regard to relationships, actually. So I mentioned when I was talking about the aspects of Jupiter being able to bring in love. Sometimes that bringing in love might come with the ending of an old love. And with this particular configuration between the 8th house and the 5th house, I mean, Uranus, the planet of divorce, is in the house of divorce, making an aspect to Saturn, restriction and blockage, in the house of love. So we could see a number of Libran people end relationships and start new ones under this energy. Yeah.
Can we just have threesomes instead of end and start new ones?
Bring what? Sorry.
Have threesomes instead of.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That might be exactly. If you want, Lana, but that would actually be probably a way to counteract that energy by bringing experimentation, you know, into these things. You might actually be able to avoid the separation and divorce thing. So who knows? I'm sure Lana's got many great suggestions for how you can spice up your sex life.
But I'm not telling them to my Libra husband. No way. If we start going bad, then I'll apply that. But I'm not going to put it in his head.
No. Don't give them ideas. Don't let him watch this video. Yeah, so the general nature of a Saturn in the 5th house can be pretty tough. Like, it's a great transit for awakening. It's a great transit for creating personal, getting more serious about your talents and your hobbies and your skills and your abilities. Lots of growth in self-knowledge and self-understanding. So there's a lot of benefits from Saturn in the 5th house. But it's not an easy transit because we tend to feel a bit burdened by responsibilities, you know, and yet from our responsibilities or feeling burdened by it, but oh God, get me out of here, let me free, I want to be liberated, you know. We feel a bit like the joy is sucked out of us in some way, but because we have to focus more on duties and work and responsibilities. And with Saturn, I've got this in my natal chart, Saturn in the 5th house, and, you know, single mum, there's a lot of responsibility regarding raising 3 children on my own, and children are a duty, children are a responsibility. So for Libran people who have children, that might be the tone that they're feeling this year, a lot of responsibility, a lot of duty with children that they might be feeling. One thing to be careful of when
occasionally with kinky sex from Uranus in the 8th.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm shutting up.
I'm loving your insights, Lada. I love your insights. Giving me ideas. Yeah, so it's also the house of love. And when Saturn is here, that can feel a bit blocked and restricted in terms of, you might feel unappreciated, you might feel unseen, you might feel a bit unloved when Saturn is transiting the 5th house. But remember, you've got Jupiter here for most of the year, lifting that joy, lifting that love. So it's going to help a lot with all of these things that I'm being a bit heavy about, a bit negative, if you like, about. But, you know, we have to tell it as it is, don't we?
If you start feeling like that, they'll come, and you very quickly be able to find a way up to have a bit more fun. You'll be able to find opportunities to connect romantically as well. So that's, you know, it's not all dark. No.
That's right. And one of the other manifestations is that you could have a love affair with someone who is older than you, someone who's maturer than you, or has a greater social status than you. So that could be some of the better manifestations. And, you know, as we say, there's shadow and light in every planet, every house, every sign. Like there's, if you want to call them good and bad. And so it's up to us how we manifest it. We either manifest the highest vibration of that, which might be falling in love with someone who's, you know, like an authority or a leader figure in society in some way, or we manifest the lower thing where we have negative self-love and blockage of love in our life. So I know what I'd prefer. So, yeah, so trying to give a couple of illustrations of different ways this can manifest for Libran people this year. But yeah, we need to also, with this transit, I would say consciously allow playtime in our life and make space to play. This is a house of play, and Saturn will make us think, oh, I've got to work, got to work, got to work. But by scheduling play time, allowing space, you know what, I'm knocking off at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to go and I'm going to, you know, go for a bike ride in the park with my kids or something, or whatever you think playtime is for you. Kinky sex. But if you go and have a bit of fun, schedule time for that. Be routine about it, if you like, because Saturn is to have organization and to have things planned out. Well, plan playtime, and that's a good way to deal with this energy as well. Keep things as light as you can this year to be able to cope with Saturn moving here, and Jupiter's going to help you do that. Jupiter's going to bring joy to these experiences. So, you know, even if you are working hard, even if you are carrying heavy responsibilities this year, Jupiter here is going to make you feel good about it. He's going to, I know that there's a reason for this, and there's a high ethics in what I'm doing. Jupiter is high morals, high ethics in what I'm doing, and I'm finding happiness in my duties and my responsibilities regarding fifth house things this year. So that ladder, in a nutshell, is what I see unfolding for us Librans this year. It's quite a mixed bag, as it will be for everybody. Do you see anything else for Libra that I made?
Fantastic. You've made a great analysis of all of that. And thank you so much, Ksenia. I think
My pleasure.
In depth. Interesting. Let's see if in a year you are all with the new boyfriend.
Having kinky sex. Well, I won't be telling everybody, but
we'll know what you're doing. We'll know. You told us. All right.
Yeah. Well, as I said, one of the indicators is the end of relationship, but not just the end of a relationship, the end of a relational situation that you are in. So if you are single, that it's a year where that relational situation of being single might end, and you might meet somebody and establish a new partnership. Or maybe you've been in a polyamorous relationship and you decide, well, that's going to end. And so the relationship itself doesn't end, but the polyamorous component of that relationship concludes, and you become monogamous. So I probably didn't go into that very deeply when I was talking about it, but the end of a relationship doesn't always mean, oh, my relationship's going to get, dissolved or whatever. It means it's going to change in some way. And this is the house of transformation. Uranus in the 8th house is going to transform intimacy through this whole 7-year period that he transits there. And this year will be one of those years when that happens. So look forward to a transformation.
Wow, I like that how you put it.
Just trying
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was
Thank you.
Thank you from all Libras. And if you'd like to order reading with Ksenia, she's taking only 20 to 30 people for 2021 readings and what to expect. Have a great year. Okay.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.